The blizzard came down the mountains like a living thing, fast, cold, and hungry. Most travelers avoid the snowstorm trails in early winter, but for years the residents living along the range whispered that the storm wasn't just weather. It was something alive, something ancient that fed on those who wandered too far in the whiteout. The first encounter belonged to a pair of snow surveyors, Lena and Farid, who were caught in an unexpected storm while recording snowfall levels. The blizzard rose so suddenly that it swallowed the world around them, and with visibility no more than a few feet, they struggled to follow the flagged route. But Lena suddenly froze, listening to the wind carrying what sounded like a child crying. Farid insisted it was just a storm, but the voice grew louder, near, then behind them. When Farid turned on his headlamp, the beam captured the faint outline of a child-sized figure crouched in the snow, its arms thin, its eyes hollow and shining white. Before either could react, the figure disintegrated into the wind, reforming several meters away. They ran until the voice faded, but Lena was never able to shake the sensation that something had been following them all the way back to the station, whispering her name. A week later came the second encounter from a truck driver named Jace, who had taken the mountain road despite warnings. Snow hammered against his windshield like pebbles, and his headlights caught the swirling flakes, making it look like he was driving through static. As he pushed forward through the drifts, he suddenly saw a woman standing in the center of the road, dressed in a tattered parka, her long hair frozen stiff. He braked hard, skidding sideways, but when he rushed from the truck to help, she was gone. Only her footprints remained, and they weren't heading away. They were circling. Perfect tracks spiraled tight around where she'd been standing, as if she had been turning and turning in place, waiting for someone. Uneasy, he got back inside, but the moment he started driving again, his radio crackled with a woman's voice whispering, "Don't leave me in the storm." He yanked the cords free, killing the radio entirely, but he swore he saw her again in every drift that passed his headlights. The third encounter belonged to backpacker twins, Sarah and Mila, who attempted a winter trek to test their survival skills. They had trained for months, but no training prepared them for a storm that seemed to turn the world upside down. Mila had gone ahead to scout the slope while Sarah packed camp. Minutes later, Sarah heard Mila scream her name. She sprinted toward the sound, finding footprints leading uphill, but they abruptly stopped at the edge of a ravine. Sarah called for her sister until her voice cracked. Then she heard the scream again from deeper in the woods. Sarah found Mila wandering in circles, covered in frost, muttering, "It copied me. It looked like you." When they finally reached safety, Mila refused to talk about the things she saw, saying only that the storm had given her a mirror that walked on its own. A ranger named Dominic provided the fourth encounter after he was dispatched to rescue two skiers who'd gone missing. The blizzard was fierce, wind whipping violently through the pines. Dominic followed ski tracks that abruptly split into 4 separate paths. Confused, he swept his headlamp over the snow, and in that faint light he saw 2 identical silhouettes standing side by side far ahead, both wearing the missing skiers' jackets. When he shouted, they turned in perfect synchrony and walked behind a ridge. Dominic pursued them, only to find no one there. The storm grew heavier, dragging the mountain into darkness. At sunrise, the real skiers were located miles away in a frozen drainage, claiming they had seen something wearing their clothes, waving them deeper into the storm. They followed until they realized the footprints weren't human. They were too long, too angled, almost blade-like. Encounter 5 came from a couple, Rhea and Callum, who were driving home after visiting relatives. The storm transformed the road into a white, roaring tunnel. Their car heater sputtered, and the windshield began frosting from the inside. Rhea wiped a small circle clear and screamed. A pale face was pressed against the glass from the outside. Impossible, since they were driving 40 miles per hour. The face slid upward, leaving streaks on the ice, and then vanished onto the roof. Callum swerved, the car fishtailing. They heard footsteps on the roof. Slow, deliberate pacing. They pulled over, but when they got out, nothing was there except strange drag marks leading back into the stormy forest. For years afterward, Rhea claimed she still heard tapping on her window whenever a snowstorm rolled in. The sixth encounter belonged to a ski lodge worker named Lila. She had taken the freight lift to the ridge to retrieve equipment left behind by maintenance crews. The wind howled as she strapped the cargo down, but then she noticed fresh footprints in the snow leading behind the shed. Thinking a guest had gotten lost, she followed them, only for the prints to suddenly multiply, branching out like veins. Then they circled her. Lila backed up slowly, but the wind shifted, and she heard breathy, heavy exhalations, like a group standing all around her. The snow began to rise at her feet, like something pulling itself upward from beneath. She bolted back to the lift, heart hammering, and never returned to that ridge again. The seventh encounter came from a snowplow driver named Patel. He was clearing a remote mountain road when the storm intensified, burying his plow blade every few minutes. His headlights reflected off something metallic in the ditch. He stepped out, pushing through knee-deep snow, and reached the object, a completely frozen backpack, zipped shut. He picked it up, noticing how eerily cold it felt, colder than the surrounding air. A voice suddenly whispered behind him, "That's mine." He turned. A figure stood only a few feet away, frozen solid, its body covered in frost, but its eyes somehow moving. The figure reached for the backpack. Patel dropped it and staggered back. The figure stepped toward him, but then collapsed into a mound of snow, as if the storm itself had sculpted it, and then let go. He returned to his plow, leaving the backpack behind. Encounter 8 involved two snowmobilers, Juno and Eric, who were exploring forest trails during a minor storm. The snowfall became heavier than predicted, prompting them to turn back. As they drove, Eric's headlight flickered, catching glimpses of something following behind, low to the ground, moving impossibly fast between the trees. When Juno stopped to check the map, the thing darted across the path behind them, leaving a long streak in the snow. They sped up, but it kept pace, weaving between pines. At one point, Eric turned his headlamp backward and saw dozens of reflective eyes in a line, watching them from beneath the snow-laden branches. They didn't stop again until they reached the lodge. The ninth encounter was from an avalanche training instructor named Mira, who had taken her student group out for an advanced course. The storm intensified early, forcing them to set up camp. That night Mira woke to a faint scraping outside her tent. She unzipped it and shone her light on snow shifting back and forth like something digging, except nothing was there. The snow kept moving, almost crawling. She woke her students, urging them to pack quickly, but one student was missing. They found him standing alone 20 yards away, staring blankly into the storm. When Mira reached him, he whispered, "Something called me. It's under the snow." Later the student recounted hearing a deep voice speaking through the ground, promising warmth if he came closer. The final encounter belonged to an elderly mountain resident named Hader, who lived in a remote cabin. He had survived storms for decades, but this one was different. The wind circled his cabin in rhythmic pulses, shaking the walls. Hader looked out the window and saw figures walking through the storm, hundreds of them, slow, dragging movements, as though the storm carried the dead in its grip. They surrounded his cabin, but not one left a footprint. Instead, the snow shifted beneath them like it was swallowing their legs with each step. One figure pressed its face to his window, its expression sorrowful, its features fading into blowing snow. Hader shut the curtains and prayed until sunrise, when the storm finally weakened. Outside his cabin, etched in the snow, was a single message carved by the wind: "We wait below." These 10 encounters were recorded over the span of 3 harsh winters, all describing the same thing: a storm that behaves like a living entity. Some believe the snowstorm trails hide something ancient trapped beneath the mountains, something that awakens when the blizzards howl. Whether spirits of those lost or something far older, no one knows. But locals swear that if you walk the mountain trails during a whiteout, you will hear voices calling through the wind, sometimes pleading, sometimes angry. And if you follow them, you may never return. And when the storm grows thick and the world turns white, they say the blizzard itself watches and waits.